Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin is down 0.39% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,665, a high of 9,878, and a low of 9,457. Volume was low, with 6,900 Bitcoins trading hands. The market continues to lean margin long, but has dropped a little bit, with 79% now leading that direction. It's $1 for 10,344 Satoshis. Hit that like button and share. And now a reading from the poet Charles Bukowski. The Crunch. Too much, too little. Too fat, too thin. Or nobody. Laughter or tears. Haters, lovers. Strangers with faces like the backs of thumbtacks. Armies running through streets of blood. Waving wine bottles. Bayoneting and fucking virgins. Or an old guy in a cheap room with a photograph of Marilyn Monroe. There is a loneliness in this world so great that you can see it in the slow movement of the hands of a clock. People so tired, mutilated, either by love or no love. People just are not good to each other, one-on-one. The rich are not good to the rich. The poor are not good to the poor. We are afraid. Our educational system tells us that we can all be big-ass winners. It hasn't told us about the gutters, or the suicides, or the terror of one person aching in one place, alone, untouched, unspoken to, watering a plant. People are not good to each other. People are not good to each other. People are not good to each other. I suppose they will never be. I don't ask them to be, but sometimes I think about it. The beads will swing, the clouds will cloud, and the killer will behead the child, like taking a bite out of the ice cream cone. Too much, too little, too fat, too thin, or nobody. More haters than lovers. People are not good to each other. Perhaps if they were, our deaths would not be so bad. Meanwhile, I look at young girls' stems, flowers of chance. There must be a way. Surely there must be a way we have not yet thought of. Who put this brain inside of me? It cries. It demands. It says that there is a chance. It will not say no. Charles Bukowski there. Love is a Dog from Hell, poems by Charles Bukowski. I guess I lose all my YouTube following there by using a bad word, but it was in the text. I mean, the options were read the text improperly or lose all of my YouTube love. So I read the text properly. Here's another poem by Charles Bukowski. This is called Traffic Signals. The old folks play a game in the park overlooking the sea, shoving markers across cement with wooden sticks. 4 play, 2 on each side, and 18 or 20 others sit in the sun and watch. I notice this as I move toward the public facility, as my car is being repaired. An old cannon sits in the park, rusted and useless. 6 or 7 sailboats ride the sea below. I finish my duty, come out, and they are still playing. One of the women is heavily rouged, wearing false eyelashes and smoking a cigarette. The men are very thin, very pale, wear wristwatches that hurt their wrists. The other woman is very fat and giggles each time a score is made. Some of them are my age. They disgust me, the way they wait for death, with as much passion as a traffic signal. These are the people who believe advertisements. These are the people who buy dentures on credit. These are the people who celebrate holidays. These are the people who have grandchildren. These are the people who vote. These are the people who have funerals. These are the dead, the smog, the stink in the air, the lepers. These are almost everybody, finally. Seagulls are better. Seaweed is better. Dirty sand is better. If I could turn that old cannon on them and make it work, I would. They disgust me. Little Charles Bukowski there in the morning. Let's see what else we got. I don't know. Let's try this one. Oh, that's good too. All right, fine. Maybe both of these. They're short. Insight. Your poems about the girls will still be around 50 years from now when the girls are gone. My editor phones me. Dear editor, the girls appear to be gone already. I know what you mean, but give me one truly alive woman tonight, walking across the floor towards me, and you can have all the poems, the good ones, the bad ones, or any that I might write after this one. I know what you mean. Do you know what I mean? It's a good one, nice and short. And finally, the escape. Escape from the Black Widow spider is a miracle as great as art. What a web she can weave, slowly drawing you to her. She'll embrace you, and then, when she's satisfied, she'll kill you, still in her embrace, and suck the blood from you. I escaped my Black Widow because she led too many males in her web, and while she was embracing one, and then the other, and then another, I worked free, got out to where I was before. She'll miss me, not my love, but the taste of my blood. But she's good. She'll find other blood. She's so good that I almost miss my death. But not quite. I've escaped. I view the other webs. There you go, just some poems to get started. From Love is a Dog from Hell, Charles Bukowski poems. Let's check out what's going on in today's news. We did it once, but we'll do it again. The price of Bitcoin has suddenly shifted thanks to this show. Previously, it was down slightly. Now it's almost dead even. The price of Bitcoin is dead even in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,701, a high of 9,878, and a low of 9,457. Volume is relatively low, with 6,909 Bitcoins trading hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 79% of the market going that direction. It's $1 for 10,308 Satoshis. Top story, BitMex trading engine back online, which of course means that it was previously offline. Once again, we just can't have nice things in Bitcoin. Every time the price goes up or the price goes down, Coinbase has been crashing, and now we see BitMex joining them. Only Binance seems to be able to take the volume of the Bitcoin price going up and down, which is very, very odd. Jameson Lopp writes on Twitter, the folks who gleefully exclaim that Bitcoin's hash rate dropped by 40% after the halving will conveniently overlook that it had surged to an all-time high just before, as miners rush to squeeze out the last of the 12.5 Bitcoin subsidy. Hash rate is back to levels seen 2 months ago. And we were talking about this on the Halvening show. It seemed if you were a Bitcoin miner and you had the chance of getting just another sliver of 12.5 Bitcoins rather than the future sliver of 6.25 Bitcoins, it would be much better to get those 12.5 slivers, right? So we think that they turned on all of their old mining equipment, anything they had lying around in the last few blocks before the halving, to try to get that sweet 12.5 Bitcoin reward. As you know, the halvening happened. The reward for Bitcoin is now 6.25, so they naturally turned their machines off. We just had difficulty adjustment on Bitcoin, which means the network kind of takes account of how many people or how many computer power is mining and adjust itself based upon that difficulty. So with these machines turned off, the difficulty went down slightly. I think Alejandro was saying it would go down 3%. And so it's a little early for phone calls, but we'll see if we can take your call in a little bit. We got to do some news first. But if there's interest in phone calls, I will put the number up and we'll do it. But we just need 2 or 3 people willing to call in. And again, you can call in, state your little opinion on anything. I'll totally listen to you. I'll give you the floor. But if you're some kind of anti-vaccine thing, it's not going to go that well. But I'm glad to talk to you guys about Bitcoin or anything. We'll go and open that up after some of the news. Congratulations to Raj. Raj says on Twitter, my first contribution to Core got merged today. Took me 2.5 years since learning to code from scratch, but eventually it happened. It was a long-standing life goal, which at times I probably thought was unreachable. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And congratulations to Raj. This is really an accomplishment as it's described. It sounds like he's fixed something in the tests for Bitcoin, as it says. Add capability to disable RPC timeout in functional tests. So by digging deep into the Bitcoin project, learning how to code, understanding the complicated complicated program that is Bitcoin, he figured it out, and he figured out a small way to contribute to the project, and it's really impressive, and I think it should show as a lesson to anyone out there. If you want to learn how to code Bitcoin, or you want to learn how to paint a painting or make a podcast or whatever you want to do, that you can do it. And this is one of those goals, contributing to Bitcoin, writing a book. It seems like one of those impossible goals. But look right here. Raj did it. Shout out to Raj. Congratulations. Very cool stuff. Bitcoin Macro writes on Twitter, 88% of all Bitcoins have already been mined. Soon, the public will realize that most of us have no interest in selling. Billions of people will fight over a small percentage of BTC. The end game? Price will moon, and only millionaires will be able to afford one full Bitcoin. We've said it before, but it remains true. There are only 21 million Bitcoin. There are many more millionaires in the world. This means that if every millionaire in the world wanted to have one Bitcoin, it simply wouldn't be possible. Additionally, as he says, 88%, or around 18 to 19 million of the 21 million Bitcoins have already been mined. It's getting tight out there. Shout out to the past, to history. May 1920, Italian immigrant Charles Ponzi, Security Exchange Company, based at 27 School Street in Boston, is rapidly gaining investors by promising to double their money in 3 months. It has delivered so far, paying out returns from new funds raised. And as we all know, that's a Ponzi scheme, right? Or a pyramid scheme, or whatever we want to call it. A fantastic graph here. Beautiful picture of Charles Ponzi himself. Remember, Ponzi was just his last name, much like gerrymander. But as you can see at the top, the schemer makes all the money. He goes to the first round, the second round, the third round, the fourth round. What he does is he then uses the money from the previous round to pay for the next round. So these people pay these people, and these people pay these people, and these people pay these people. And pretty soon, as it says, by the 10th round, the Ponzi schemer will need to find a group of 1,224 investors. By the 18th round, he would have to come up with over 250,000 investors. I forget the number, but if you ravel these schemes far enough, you do need the entire population of the Earth to join your Ponzi scheme in order to keep the machine running. So obviously it's not going to work. It's a bad idea, but it seems good in the beginning. You see, the early investors get paid out. The early investors think that it's fine, and their stories are what bring in the second round, and they're the ones that really get fleeced. It's not sure what's worse for Donald Trump, that he's so far gone he's claiming he's ingesting poison, or that no one believes him and he's lying is trending. For those of you who haven't noticed, the president said yesterday that he is taking hydroxychloroquine, although, as we know, this president has been known to lie casually and often whenever challenged. It does seem likely in the speech that he just made it up on the spot. Later, the White House doctor was asked and did say they had a discussion about hydroxychloroquine, and he agreed that it might be worth taking, but the doctor did not go so far as to say that he had prescribed hydroxychloroquine to Donald Trump or that he had actually been taking it. For just a little bit on hydroxychloroquine, let's go to Fox News, where Neil Cavuto cannot believe that the president is taking untested, non-scientific
medicine. A VA study
medicine.
showed that among a population of veterans in a hospital receiving this treatment, those with vulnerable conditions, respiratory conditions, heart ailments, they died. There are also a number of other studies out, including the Journal of the American Medical Association, which examined some 1,438 individuals in the New York area across 25 hospitals from the middle of March to the end of March. The study was a real chance to look at the benefits that the president insisted were hydroxychloroquine. They concluded that among residents hospitalized in metropolitan New York with COVID-19, the treatment or both compared with neither treatment, no statistical differences. A second study done by Jacid Jalaris and colleagues at the New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia University Irving Medical Center in northern Manhattan from March 7th to April 8th also showed there were no visible differences, that the risk of intubation or death was not significantly higher or lower among patients who received hydroxychloroquine versus those who did not. The VA study to which the president alluded wasn't a loaded political one. It was a test on patients there, and those who took it in a vulnerable population, including those with respiratory or other conditions, they died. I want to stress again, they died. If you are in a risky population here and you are taking this as a preventative treatment to ward off the virus, or in a worst case scenario, you are dealing with the virus, and you are in this vulnerable population, it will kill you. I cannot stress enough. This will kill you. So again, whatever benefits the president says this has, and certainly it has had for those suffering from malaria, dealing with lupus, this is a leap that should not be taken casually by those watching at home or assuming, well, the president of the United States says it's okay. Even the FDA was very cautious about this unless in a clinical trial safely and deliberately watched. I only make this not to make a political point here, but a life and death point. Be very, very careful. I want to pursue this.
So he wasn't making a political point there, just a life and death point, that you should not take hydroxychloroquine just randomly. You should not take it without doctor's supervision, and that more likely you should take it if you have malaria or lupus. It doesn't seem to affect the coronavirus. As he says, the studies at the Veterans Administration showed that it didn't affect and actually may have hurt people. So you'd be better off taking a placebo or a sugar pill. Maybe you could get some jelly beans and just pretend those jelly beans are hydroxychloroquine. You would be much better off. Again, the president's setting a horrible example for people. He should be wearing a mask to protect others and to show a good example. Instead, he's allegedly using untested medication. We've got good news in Las Vegas. The Clark County Commissioners have approved plans on May 8th to allow the Pinball Hall of Fame to build a new, larger location on the Las Vegas Strip. This is great news for Las Vegas and great news for pinball fans everywhere. The owner of the Pinball Arcade currently has around 250 pinball tables on display, available for coin use by anyone at the Pinball Arcade. Currently no admission fee. He says he has more than 1,000 machines in his storage. He fixes them. He makes them work. He has a team of volunteers. This is great news for pinball, for the history of pinball. It was an arcade machine before there were video games. So very cool stuff. Someday, hopefully, everything reopens and you guys can visit Las Vegas and check out the Pinball Hall of Fame. Maybe even in its new location, although obviously this is going to take years. but it's been approved, so the technical things are done. Shout out to Jack, the CEO of Twitter and Cash App and Square, all the things. He says, I'm not adding Litecoin support for Cash App. Quit fucking asking. And I just love his stance on this. I love the way he's keeping Cash App pure. And I love the way they've recently added a really nice dollar cost averaging program. So if you want to try Cash App, it's a very cool app on your phone. You can hook up your bank account. You can buy Bitcoin. And remember, dollar cost averaging, you could buy $10 a week or $100 a month, something like that. And this way, all of your buys will average out and you'll get kind of an average price. It's really hard when you first hear about Bitcoin. You want to enter the market with all of your money. Depending on your timing, this can be good or bad. If you want to have a strategy that works regardless of your timing, buying dollar cost averaging, taking, say, $1,000, buying $100 a month for 10 months, and just seeing how it goes will probably get you a better average price than just jumping in with 1,000. Of course, you could be lucky. You could jump in with 1,000 when it's low. You could be unlucky. You could jump in when it's high. Nobody really knows. Thing goes up and up and down and down. But yeah, it's better than Litecoin. And we had some fun on Twitter. Actually, they got me on this one. Adam Back's name is actually very close to Adam3U5. I think it's like, we'll see in a minute. But yeah, it's very close to this. And I kind of thought that he just had enough. I've met him a couple of times. Not that he's a big joker or anything, but I kind of thought that he was being sarcastic. And he was just like, well, if people are going to say I'm Satoshi, I'm just going to say I'm Satoshi. And I just thought it was a really funny proof of Satoshi, right? He doesn't provide any keys. He doesn't provide any links or anything technical. There's no signing of keys or technical details, or maybe even just a image of him and the crew back in the day writing the code. No, there's none of that. It's just this random, okay, fine. I'm Satoshi Nakamoto. I just loved it. I thought it was great. So yeah, they fooled me, but fortunately I retweeted it to make a joke about it, saying that it was likely the sarcasm thing that the internet doesn't get anymore. But then, of course, the story got deeper, and it turned out that this is not Adam Back. Adam is Adam3US instead of this one, which was Adam3U5. And he's complaining here about another one called Adan3US. So there are lots of imposter Adam Back accounts out there. So keep an eye out for that. And as I said later, I just assumed everyone in Bitcoin knew. If someone asks you if you're Satoshi, you say yes. So funny little thing there. I almost looked like a jerk on Twitter. That was a close one. But then again, we all make mistakes sometimes. We all look like idiots and jerks sometimes. So, just accept it. It's going to happen occasionally, even to the best or the worst of us. So shout out to Avocados. This was pretty interesting. You can't see it in this picture, but let's zoom in. They've made new avocados without pits. Genetic engineering, what have you. A British company just started selling avocados without pits as a way to reduce the risk of people slicing themselves while trying to cut open the fruit. And I definitely think this is a major risk. I enjoy avocados. I've managed to expand my palate. Normally I didn't eat a lot of weird food, but oh yeah, avocados are good. But you're definitely going to cut your hand open, opening these darn things. They seem like they're really tough. Then all of a sudden it's not. Slip, slice, there goes your hand. That's why I strongly suggest a plastic avocado slicer. Much easier than genetically engineering avocados to not have pits, which apparently we've already done. But who knows if you want to eat those weird genetic mutant avocados. If you want to eat the normal ones, just go to Amazon. It's like $10. You buy a plastic avocado slicer. Has lots of other features, but the main feature you're looking for is a piece of plastic strong enough to break through the skin, but not strong enough to break through your skin. So, good idea, avocado slicers. Strange idea, avocados without pits. But then again, I eat seedless grapes and I eat seedless all kinds of other things. So there's watermelons. There's all kinds of genetic engineering going on. Sometimes it makes the food better. Generally, I think it makes it weird. But who knows? We'll eat anything we can these days, right? Shout out to Bill Gates. He put out another version of his summer book recommendations, what he's reading and watching. Definitely suggest you guys check that out. Usually I don't have that much in common with Bill's reading list. He's very science heavy. He reads the books that I find difficult and time consuming. But I did manage to see a couple that I'd read this time, so I was pretty psyched. I've read the book Cloud Atlas. I think it's a great movie as well. Check it out. It has Tom Hanks, directed by the people who did The Matrix. At the time, I think it was a man and woman, but it might be two women now. But still, great movie, incredible. And really, it's very much about, like, similar to The Matrix, similar to Bound. I haven't watched it, but I think it's similar to Sense X or Sense 9, something like that. The people behind The Matrix, get in trouble here, they're very interested in the idea that you could change sexes and that you as a soul or a spirit could embody a woman, or you could embody a man, or you could change, right? And The Matrix is kind of about that, and Cloud Atlas is very much about that, with many of the characters coming back as actors in different roles, crossing genders, crossing timelines. It wasn't quite there in the book, but it was a great thing to bring to the movie and really kind of adds to the mystery of how are these characters tied together and what's the common thread that brings them all together. And a lot of it's about good and evil. And throughout the times, different people being good in the past or being evil in the past and then making up for it, atoning. Very much a karmic book. So check out Cloud Atlas. If you don't want to read the book, just get the movie. Even the movie is very long and a little tough to deal with, but it's very Matrixy if you can give it time. You have to be patient. No one has that anymore. I also read with Bill XKCD, the comic strip. He's also checking out The Thing Explainer by same guy, and Hyperbole and a Half, which is a great comic strip about a girl, and she talks about history and she talks about anxiety and all kinds of stuff. Really neat to see Bill G getting into the internet comic strips here. And of course, there's more recommendations on Bill Gates' summer book list and movies and such. Check that out if you're interested. Richard Feynman writes, "Stupidity. You think you know everything without questioning. Intelligence. You question everything you think you know." So it's never too late to fight the Dunning-Kruger effect. Remember, this is basically what he's talking about here, Dunning-Kruger. My buddy Blake used to talk about it all the time. The smart people always think there's someone smarter than them. It's just something that you do. You're like, I'm pretty clever, but I met that Vitalik Buterin, or you met Blue Matt or Adam Back, as we're talking about today. Yeah, they're way smarter than me, smarter than pretty much most anyone I've ever met. So you have to have that humility if you're really, truly clever. But if you're stupid, you run out there, I'm smarter than Adam Back. I'm smarter than Vitalik and Blue Matt and Luke Jr. and all these people that are doing incredible work on Bitcoin. It's nonsense. You can't do that. And again, maybe you get older, you think more about this. When you're younger, you're stupider. But there's always hope. And remember, just think about the movie Heist by David Mamet. Try to think of what someone smarter than you would do and then do that. It's a little cheat you could do in your head. I certainly try to do it to control my mouth and keep myself out of trouble, not to mouth off to people. I could get in a lot of trouble if I just said everything I thought, but I try not to. Here's a shout out to Belgium. This is really impressive. I kind of look forward to this happening here. Let's see if we can get rid of the audio. But here's Belgium Prime Minister Sophie Wilms was visiting a hospital in Brussels today. Hospital staff turned their backs to her car. Belgium has the highest per capita COVID death toll. The government failed completely. So look forward to this happening. Look at them all turning their backs. What a sign of disrespect to the Belgium Prime Minister who failed to protect her people. Shout out to the Internet Archive. I don't really understand this, but I think it's incredible. The Internet Archive has over 200,000 recordings of 78 RPM records digitized using a custom 4-head turntable and in stereo to get the maximum data off of them. Audio restorer J.A. Thompson has been using this abundance of data to improve the sound greatly. And as you can see here, there's kind of a example of what the grooves in a record. Remember, the grooves in a record are kind of like the sound that you hear. It's kind of like the equalizer. The record goes through and plays it. But as you can see, with 4 heads, and stereo. They're getting an incredible amount of data. Then later on, they're mixing the data together to make an even better sound. Really impressive from the Internet Archive. It's enough that they're trying to keep these records online so you can listen to them, but even better that they're improving the sound. What an incredible crew. I got to visit the Internet Archive several times in San Francisco, and just amazing. I got to meet Brewster Kale and the rest of the volunteers and the crew down there, and just an incredible place. They're also digitizing video games, old Apple discs, all kinds of stuff like that. I'm really fortunate I get to follow this guy, Jason Scott, at Text Files. He's a legendary part of the internet. He created textfiles.com, where he captured all of the old BBS text files that used to go around. And he's been a great collector and preserver of internet history and internet data. I actually got to see him announce textfiles.com at DEF CON way back in the day. So very cool. Shout out to Jason Scott. He does a great job scanning in disks and adding more data to the Internet Archive. Someday I hope to get my pictures and hopefully even these podcasts and that kind of thing up there in the Internet Archive so that they can be preserved for the future in case YouTube decides they don't like me anymore, which could always happen. So shout out. I used to think about this a lot, Matt Veloso writes, and a quote from Catherine Non-Oleg. She says, I still think my favorite thing that's ever happened to me on the internet is the time a guy said, people change their minds when you show them facts. And I said, actually, studies show that's not true, and linked 2 sources. And he said, yeah, well, I still think it works. Maybe that's a way homer. You got to think about that one on the way home. Jennifer Tilley, actress, poker player, writes, Isolation Journal, Day 67. Life is now just one long, uninterrupted day, interspersed with periods where everything goes dark. So, yes, there doesn't seem to be a big difference day to day here. I eat my Rice Krispies, generic, of course, little almond milk, and then it starts all over again, right? Hong Kong report. Production of the coming season of political satire show Headliner has been stopped, and previous episodes that received complaints will also be pulled down, says RTHK. This came after the public broadcaster was given a serious warning by authorities. And remember, Hong Kong is not a free society. Hong Kong has a very strange system called 2 countries, 1 system, something like that. And or 2 systems, 1 country, I don't know. But yes, Hong Kong is continuing to have trouble with the People's Republic of China. They are tightening their grips on the island and continuing to fight back against the democracy protests that broke out both last year and, of course, many years ago with the umbrella protests. Personally, I continue to stand with the people of Hong Kong. Thanks to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, we now know that things did indeed look too good to be true. Georgia's coronavirus numbers look so rosy because officials misrepresented the data in a way that's difficult to believe. It wasn't done on purpose. And this is just a stunning story where they're, again, risking people's lives to reopen businesses. But the data, it's really fascinating. They put it out of order. Let me see if I can find the chart. But now, of course, they don't have the chart. What's good with it? Journalists these days. But anyway, the data, they put it out of order. They put the May data before the April data so that they could claim it was a declining curve. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, oh, we did it on accident. Oh, or maybe they just thought they were supposed to arrange the data so that it showed a perfect downward curve so they could reopen the economy. Remember, when you mess with data like this, people's lives are affected, right? This is why we have ethics and honesty and standards and things, right? You can't mess with the data. The virus is good, virus is bad. It's not strong enough. It's too strong. We're going to find out later. We're going to get all the data together. People are going to write books. They're going to write analyses on it, and we're going to figure it all out. But right now, we've got a real problem with people messing with the data in real time for their own political and perhaps profit motives. Similar story in Florida. The data scientist who designed Florida's COVID-19 dashboard, a mobile-friendly, intuitive display of the outbreak, has been removed from her position because she refused to censor data and manipulate numbers to generate support for opening. So, again, if you're on the side of reopening, you've really got to use that brain up in your head and think about what someone smarter than you would do. If they're faking the numbers in Georgia, if they're covering up the numbers in Florida, do you really think it's a good idea to reopen? Or do you think that some people think it's a good idea, and instead of arguing it directly, saying, hey, you should just let everyone die, and being fair with you, they're covering it up. They're changing the data. Not a good look. I wouldn't want to be on this side. Texas has seen a modest but steady increase in the rate of new coronavirus cases. The number of new cases reported each day has grown from an average of around 918 during the week ending May 1st to around 1,227 last week. Remember, the president's official guidelines of when you're supposed to reopen your state, you're supposed to have 14 days of declining numbers. As we see here, 14 days of increasing numbers. So if you live in Texas and you want to go outside and you're thinking, is the virus out there? Are we out of the woods yet? No, we are not out of the woods. The virus is still out there. You should be wearing masks and caution and washing your hands and wearing gloves and avoiding people and staying 6 feet away and all these things. Generally not touching anything. Complete horrible experience outside. Or you could just order some food, stay home, try to work from home, and just wait this thing out. In 2 more weeks to a month or two, we'll have our second outbreak. We'll have our second lockdown. And it's your choice right now whether you want to participate in that as one of the control group, right? You could be part of the experiment. Just go outside. That's all you have to do. Hey, I got a new book as recommended by David Foster Wallace, sadly deceased writer of Infinite Jest. I got Gardner's Modern American Usage. This is more than just a dictionary. This is a word usage book. So to quote the back cover here, I have the physical copy. It's 700 pages, 2.45 pounds, adding to the weight of the old library here. But this is the kind of book, if your usage questions are, if something happens twice a year, is it biannual or biennial? Is it all right to say alums instead of alumni or alumnae? And should it be spelled alums or alums with an N? Do you home in or hone in? It's hone in. It's a sound. You're following the sound. He's also answering your grammar questions. Is it permissible to end a sentence with a preposition? Turns out yes. Is it permissible or even desirable to begin a sentence with and? I think yes as well. He says, what about but? Fascinating, huh? What are the 4 essential rules of pronouns, subjective, semicolons, the 6 tenses of English? Is it wrong to split a verb phrase? Is it wrong to split an infinitive? So fun stuff here. Dictionary of Modern American Usage. You're supposed to just flip through it and have your word questions answered and look it up if you have a question, but different than a dictionary. And again, I read a 70-page essay about this in David Foster Wallace's Consider the Lobster. And he took me from a big doubter at the beginning thinking that I wouldn't even be able to read the whole essay because it would be too dry and too boring and I would run away, to convinced and fascinated by the lexicographers' wars between the prescriptivists and the descriptivists and the people who enjoy arguing over word usage. I read a little bit about Brian Gardner. He's also the editor of Black's Law Dictionary. So he's a big baller in the lexicographer community. So very cool stuff if you're interested in dictionaries or words or communicating. As the book says in the inside flap, this book, a detailed explanation and defense of standard American English, contains more than 700 pages of crisp, authoritative guidance on hundreds of questions of grammar and usage. Very cool. It also says, in an age of linguistic uncertainty, this book gives sure-footed guidance on the direct, precise, and robust use of the English language. And although the book is scholarly, it is leavened with a dry wit. It is at once entertaining and educational. How cool is that? So they're really selling it. Again, you already got my $10. So shout out to Mr. Plinkett over at Red Letter Media. I love these guys. They do a great job with their Star Wars and Star Trek and other movie reviews, just using logic and destroying the terrible plots that these movie studios keep dumping on us. The latest terrible plot is the plot of Star Trek Picard, where they ruined the once great captain and they just kind of shit all over Star Trek The Next Generation. As this clip shows, they were even creating fake tweets to support their bogus Picard show. Keywords to include emotional, epic, and best moments in television history. Emphasis on crying and all the feels is a hot phrase trending with the 18 to 24 demo we're aiming for. Please do not to forget to erase these comments and replace them when constructing your tweet. Hashtag Star Trek Picard at Sir Patrick Stewart, Brent Spiner, and Jonathan Franks. Whoops. So, yes, it was bullshit. It's terrible. But at least there's an hour and a half of Mr. Plinkett destroying Star Trek Picard that you can now enjoy after the show. Apple Glass, rumored to start at $499, support prescription lenses, and much more. Let's see. There will be displays in both lenses that can be interacted with using gestures. The glasses will rely on a paired iPhone, similar to the original Apple Watch. An early prototype featured LiDAR, that's kind of like radar, right? You can maybe even see the shapes of the buildings and things around you. That'd be amazing. And wireless charging. That's interesting. So you could just put it on a thing and it'll charge. Yeah. So there's no cable connection. Apple originally planned to unveil the glasses as one more thing, surprise, at its iPhone event in the fall, but restrictions on in-person gatherings could push the announcement back to a March 2021 event. They're targeting a late 2021 or early 2022 release. They say they're also working on an AR/VR headset, similar to Oculus Quest by Facebook. Most of these glasses seem to be AR usage, so I don't know what it's going to look like. My imagination says you look at a building, maybe it would tell you the name of that building. You look at a painting, maybe it'll tell you the name of that painting, some history. Maybe it just puts your timers, your appointments, your other information on the screen. Maybe you're getting news alerts on your glasses now. I don't know. It sounds incredibly futuristic. I was excited for Google Glass. I'm excited for Apple Glass. Hopefully Bitcoin goes up and we can all get Apple Glass and get some VR headsets and all this kind of thing. So interesting tech news. Just saw that. Georgia church closes 2 weeks after reopening as families come down with coronavirus. That's right, you are not safe in church. I don't know why unscientific people on Twitter are assuming that church gatherings are different than other gatherings. Just as I wouldn't go to a movie theater right now, I also wouldn't go to a church. A lot of churches are offering remote services. You can worship from home. And if your God takes attendance in church and that's all that matters to him, you might want to renegotiate and get a better God. But yes, I don't think that you actually have to be there. I know it's sad for churches and it's sad for a lot of people. They get a lot of camaraderie and fellowship and friendship from churches and from gatherings. But basically, it's just a risk-benefit situation where do you want to take the risk now or do you want to wait 6 months and go back to church then? I mean, hopefully it's still there and all that. They have there's a lot of problems, but I imagine they could get the loans for small businesses like anyone else. And maybe it's a good time to just keep donating and to watch from home. So you do have an option. You don't have to go out there. And if you do go out there, despite efforts of extreme caution, they still spread the virus, and multiple families did come down with coronavirus after going to church. Where's the mask? Where's the gloves? It's almost like nothing happened. Here's a mall in Houston, Texas. As the narrator is saying, there's no social distancing at all. There's no masks. It's a crowded shopping mall. There's a mask, so that's good, at least one. But I would say it looks like 90% no mask. I would say 9 out of 10, easy. They say the mall is full. Here's this guy. He's got a mask. And again, like, you can choose. You can be the one who lives and the one who doesn't spread it to people, which is a horrible thing to do to someone. Because, again, the mask mainly protects others. It's mainly a society thing. They have it down in Asian countries. They have no problem with this, wearing masks when they feel sick, and they just don't want to spread it. But yes, we're seeing it in Texas. Despite those numbers showing the coronavirus cases were going up, they're back in the malls and they're shopping. So watch out for that. Hey, we made it through the news. Let me see about the phone calls. We'll get the phone number up here. Get ready. You can call us now at 1-518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network. There we go. We've even got the graphics on the screen. So we'll keep the show going about 5-10 more minutes here. We're 45 minutes in. See if I can check with the chat. I don't have it open right now, but I'll go find it. It's a great time to call. Someone was calling earlier. So if you do have something to say, you want to say, give us a call now at 1-518-600-1949. Internationally, just use 001 to dial. You can probably call through something like Gmail or some kind of system. You can also call us through Skype at World Crypto Network. Let's see. lots of things going on in the chat. Not very impressed by any of them. Again, cowards with your denial. Call me up. Let's hear your non-scientific denials. Let's hear your anecdotal evidence. I had a friend, my cousin, he cured it with disinfectant and bleach. He just drank that stuff right up. Cured it, no problem. So you can call now and tell me all your vaccine denier theories and how Bill Gates, the creator of computers, who also handed out malaria nets, who also did all these good things with his charity, unlike Steve Jobs, who just kept the money, is really a secret and evil person. Come on, tell me all your conspiracy theories. Did they turn the frogs gay? Did that happen to you? Oh, well, it doesn't look like anyone's going to call in. We do have the phone lines open, though. Maybe we'll just do a little reading here from the Dictionary of Modern American Usage. We're flipping randomly. I know, it's terrifying. Academic work. My God. Intramural. Conducted within the limits of an organization or body, especially of an educational institution. The term is misused when the sense extends beyond one college. There we go. Let's see, just a sec. I got to turn the sound on. Just a second, man. Let's see, where's the button? It's different. It's different because it's in the call mode. Sorry. Let me see. Sound. There, speaker, Roadcaster. All right. Here we go. Caller, you're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. It's Sam. I'm calling from London.
Hey, Sam from London. What's on your mind today about Bitcoin or the virus or anything you want to talk about?
Oh, it's the virus.
It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one, yeah.
Yeah. It is a weird one. Most young people, like, did you watch Elon on Joe Rogan?
I saw the first one, but I haven't caught the second one yet. I imagine Elon is very upset about the virus. It doesn't fit in with his plans as a businessman. Obviously, he's got a contract and a lot of time schedules and things. And I do think he's got a little bit of a point where the other automakers did just open the other day, and he's not being allowed to open. So he's in a tough position there. But what did he say on Joe Rogan's show?
I mean, the take home I got was he said that he saw the whole thing unfold in China. So seeing it happen again now is like watching the same movie just in a different language.
I definitely feel that. It did seem like there was an early warning out there for us. Certainly, I don't work for the CDC or any of these agencies, but I remember reacting with horror when I saw that they were rushing to build hospitals, and we were concerned they wouldn't be safe hospitals and they might collapse on them or something. But it turned out, no, they really needed those hospitals. They were spraying down buildings. They were locking down people. There were horrible videos of a woman who had lost her husband screaming on the balcony, not knowing what to do about it. So it was a human loss as well. But yes, it does seem like slow motion that it started there. And at first they kind of tried to cover it up. They didn't take it seriously. And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they took it very seriously. And I still think we are not taking it seriously, at least in America. I hope other countries are better. But the problem's the same. If America just keeps the virus and we just have it, we're going to come to England. We're going to spread it. We're going to come to Hong Kong. We're going to spread it. I mean, and yes, there's a 14-day quarantine and there's all these lockdown things. But eventually those go away. And if America is still virus town, we might not be welcome in other countries. I don't know. It's scary.
Oh, you'll always be welcome in ours.
Oh.
we've had lockdown. There was a lot of criticism against the UK government for locking down late, after what was happening in Italy. And people were, asking, why haven't they locked down yet? But they did. They've paid 80% of people's wages for the last 3 months. Money printer went burr. And to essentially to try and stop the spread of it, they built the Nightingale Hospital, which is there's a big conference centre in North London called the XL Centre that's got a main hall that's it's about almost a mile long, this hall, and they sort of turned that into a field hospital. They did something similar in Birmingham as well, just so that the intensive care units weren't overloaded at hospitals with mainly people over the age of 60 or whatever, who seem to react badly to the virus and have an adverse effect on their breathing and lungs. But my wife works in a hospital, and she works in the sort of on the front line for people that first come in. So before they've been triaged, before they've been properly diagnosed, she ended up catching it, and so our whole household went into isolation. Me and the children were living downstairs for about 2 weeks, while my wife stayed in the bedroom upstairs. She never left the room apart from to use the bathroom. So I'd do all the 3 meals a day and put them outside her front door, outside the door for her to get. And she's young, but she was very, very unwell.
Yeah, it's very scary. I mean, it's perfectly healthy, middle-aged or younger people get it, and it takes them down. I mean, how did the symptoms develop? Because of course I'm kind of afraid of this too. I have a little bit of a cough, and it's probably just dry weather and allergies and those kind of things. But did it just start with a cough? What kind of symptoms did she experience?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, the progression on her symptoms was, just have a look at the calendar. So, Wednesday, the 1st of April, she wasn't feeling too well, but okay-ish. I think she went in she did go to work that day, so she did do a 12-hour shift at the hospital, but she just kind of felt a bit icky. Thursday, Friday, the 2nd and 3rd of April, she was sort of saying, I don't feel very well. I've got a bit of a temperature. By the weekend, the 4th, I think on the 4th, Saturday the 4th, she went to work, and they just so that they could test her to see if she had the virus. And then Sunday night on the 5th, she had a really high fever, vomiting, just like the worst flu you could imagine. And she's like, that's it. I'm going upstairs. I'm going into isolation. Then on Monday the 6th, the test results came back, and they phoned her and said it was positive, but she knew that already. And that week, from Monday the 6th of April to Friday the 10th, she didn't leave the room. Really, she couldn't get out. She spent the whole week in bed, basically.
Wow.
Just no energy, really, really unwell, headache, vomiting, diarrhea. Temperature was, we used the metric system, 40 degrees Celsius, but I think in old money, I think that's 102 or 105 or,
Yeah,
sort of higher.
Yeah, 38's about 100, and they say here if you have a temperature over 100, that's one of the big markers. So I think it's,
Yeah.
I think temperature and fever is one of the big ones. I still think I have a cough and allergies. I don't really have a fever yet. And again, I haven't been in contact with anyone, so it'd be one of those absolute miracles if I get the damn thing. But no, it's scary, and it's out there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that 14-day asymptomatic period where you are sick and you are spreading it, but you don't know. And that's what a lot of people, I think, are having a hard time grasping, is that, yes, you don't feel sick and you go to work and you talk to all your customers and you shake all their hands and everything. But then, you know, a few days later, you start to go down, and then a few days later, your customers start to go down. And I just don't think this is good for anybody. I think that we need to stop this thing. The real way of stopping it is to separate it and to separate everyone. And it's much, much harder now that it's spread, certainly. But unfortunately, the real way to stop it is still just separating everyone and just, you know, letting it not spread. So
I think, social distancing has definitely got a big part to play. And yeah, I mean, I've got sympathy. I sympathise with people on both sides of the argument, because I mean, my wife, she came out of isolation on Monday, the 20th of April, but she has still not been allowed to go back to work because she's still not got a normal temperature, which means there's still all the symptoms have gone now, apart from the temperature, which has not got back down to normal yet. You know, but I mean, you know, so she's been mixing with me and the rest of the family in the house, you know, since Monday, the 20th of April. Have we got it and just not even realised we've had it? I don't know. Maybe, you know, it doesn't, you know, I couldn't tell you if I've had it or not. You know, maybe I did. The kids had a bit of a cough and a runny nose. Was that it? Who knows? Maybe, probably. It just affects different people differently. You just don't know whether. So while people think, yeah, it's just a flu and it's mild, yeah, for some, but for others, it's a killer. People I work with have had, you know, brothers and sisters that have died. Somebody that my wife works with in the department, a 52-year-old lady, she's died. So yeah, you just don't know if it's going to be bad or feel like you've got a bit of an allergy. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yep. And also it affects a lot of underlying conditions. I know a lot of people in America here are overweight, myself included, certainly. And
obesity is a big risk factor.
It is. Obesity is a big risk factor.
It is, but my wife's quite big.
Uh-oh.
And that is a risk factor.
Well, it's the kind of thing you want to improve, but the only way to improve it is, you know, action over time. And it just takes a lot of action over a lot of time, especially just like spreading the virus. If you spread the virus everywhere, if you let yourself kind of get out of control with the weight and stuff, it's even harder to reel it back in, but it's even more unsafe. I mean, it's just it's a very hard thing to deal with. And the food's tough, and the going to the gym is tough, and things are expensive. There's a lot of reasons why people are unhealthy, in addition to the fact that, you know I'm lazy, and a lot of people are lazy. But yeah, we all need to take better care of ourselves. I've also noticed a lot of my friends and people that I know are suddenly immunocompromised. I didn't know before. It's not the kind of thing you just say in conversation, but a lot of people I know are freaked out and staying home just because they've had problems in the past, and they're very worried getting this thing could be a one-way ticket to death, you know, so.
I think, I mean, this could end up endemic. So, you know, past pandemic, it could just be endemic. It could just be something that's out there and it's never going to go away. And society will have to change so that, you know, people are a bit more polite and, you know, sneeze into a handkerchief or into their elbow and wash their hands more often, and, you know, don't sneeze on the hand and then hold the handrail when they're riding the tube or the subway or whatever. You know, just everyone's just a bit more hygienic and, you know, thinks a bit more, because, you know, there is this sort of, you know, underlying, you know, virus that's kicking around, you know, the globe. Could end up where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. They say it could just be like the flu, and it comes back every season, but kills people. You know, just like the flu, but it kills people. And I'm worried about the older generations and losing all of that knowledge. A lot of people seem callous about it. They don't seem to care. There's kind of a thing that we do, and I certainly do it too. If somebody makes it long enough, you say, you know, oh, they had a good run. You know, oh, they were 80 or they were 90 or something. But The reality is they shouldn't have that extra time stolen from them. Like you were saying, one of your coworkers was 52. That's not very old.
Yeah.
And that's,
No.
you know, there's a lot of grandchildren time there that was missed. And there's a lot of like, two ways. It goes two ways as well. They enjoy the grandchildren, and the grandchildren enjoy having the guidance of grandparents. So it's very disappointing to think about a world without grandparents, especially in some of the more poor communities. A lot of grandparents end up raising the children. So that just wouldn't be an option. They'd just be gone. So yes, I don't like to think of the future without grandparents.
And then but then like the flip side, I mean, like what about the economy? You know, I mean, if you don't make stuff, there is no stuff. If the lorries aren't delivering food, there isn't any food. You know, if people aren't delivering packages, there are no packages. There are no clothes. You know, people have to get jobs and they have to work. So, yeah.
Well, sadly, as Bitcoiners, we're in a Keynesian economy. Most of the economists and the people running things are Keynesian, and when they're in a crisis, they print money. So sadly, I as a Bitcoiner, this is against what we believe in and those kind of things. But we're in a crisis, we're in an emergency, and I think that they should print more money. I know,
there is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Everyone knows that, but no, I think you have to print more money.
You just had that to hand.
Oh yeah, I got that on the buttons. I loved it so much. I thought it was the best thing. I almost got the other one where he said, "We will not run out of ammunition," but I thought that was more military. This is more like aspirational, that there's an infinite amount of cash. So I just love that. But yeah, I mean, and it's tough because I know a lot of people in the chat are like, "Oh no, you're going to cause hyperinflation and all these other things." But the other reality is just letting all these people go bankrupt and just letting them run out into the street, and they're just going to smash things, social distancing or not, and it's going to cost us all more money. I mean, we're in this all together, and unfortunately, the American system is not like Denmark, where they've chosen to save the firm, and you get paid through your employer, and when this is all over, you just go right back to your employer and start working again. At least that's the theory. We put everyone on unemployment. So we have a massive unemployment system now. All the restaurants and all the places people used to work are all going out of business. And then the other problem is there's no demand. So I grieve for the economy, and I agree with you. We're not going to have meat deliveries soon. We're not going to have food deliveries soon. It could get very tight. But at the same time, if we go out before the virus is dead, we're just going to respread the virus, have a second lockdown, and the second lockdown is going to be longer and more harsh than the first. A lot of the numbers I've seen in America where they show how people locked down for about a week and then they couldn't take it and they started going back out again, which just means that you're spreading the virus. No one likes, military patrols in the streets or whatever, but we have to stop the spread of the virus. We have to kill off the virus. Then we can bring back the economy. I just don't see it working the other way. As I think even Bill Gates himself said, no one wants to go to work and walk over bodies, right? You're not going to be able to sell tickets or serve tables or write computer code or whatever you're going to do at your work. You're going to be thinking about the bodies in the street and thinking about your family and thinking about your loved ones and thinking about people you've met and reading about their deaths. So I think it's going to be very distracting and very negative for the economy unless we kill the virus. So, and science is working on it. We just need to give them more time.
Yeah. Or keeping the R rate below, is it 1 or 0?
Yep.
I think, so for every person that's got it, they infect less than one other person.
Yep.
So I think this virus has got an R of 3 if you just leave it out in the wild, but with social distancing and, lockdown and all that, you can get the R below 1.
And it's hard to tell sometimes with the leadership we have and that kind of thing, but everyone's doing a great job staying home. The reason that it's not so bad is because we're staying home and we're not spreading it. When we go out, we're going to increase the spread. And even though it might not kill everyone, the more we spread it, the more likely we are to find those weaker people who it's going to kill. So you just have to stay home. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, I know everyone's antsy and they don't like being inside. And certainly, I have practice as a history major. All I used to do is read books. So I just read books. And my personal trick for that is I read, 3 or 5 books at the same time. a comic book, a heavy book, a narrative book, a lighter book, a scholarly book. Read 5 of them. And then what you do is you book around. So you read like 15 minutes of one book, you stop, you read the next book, read like half hour of that book, stop, read the next book. It makes it kind of like TV, right? Like you have a different book that comes on. And if you're bored with one book, you just read another book. And I also read today, John Scalise, he said he doesn't finish them. I'm still a pretty big finisher on books. But if he doesn't like them, he doesn't finish them. So think about that too. If you're in a book that you don't like, thank it for its service. Thank the author for trying to entertain you or trying to educate you or whatever it was, and throw it to the side. There's plenty more books. Life is short. Get a book that you like. So, and the same thing for movies and TV shows. I feel pretty comfortable staying inside. Sure, I don't like it, and I had a great time recently traveling the world for the first time ever and all that. But I kind of put that in the back of my mind now. That's something I hope to do later after we kill the virus, after we win this thing. So.
Yeah, you went all around the UK, didn't you? How did you find it? Did you have a time? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, I mean, I've read lots of English literature and Sherlock Holmes and things like that. So everything to me was like, oh, I recognize that, or I've heard of that, I got to go to of course, London, and I saw the British Museum 3 times. It was amazing. And it's pretty funny I have lots of friends here on the internet, and I don't have a lot of money. So for me, it's better off to just stay on a friend's couch than to go to some fancy place or anything like that. And for me, just seeing what's around the neighborhoods and things. So I stayed a lot of time in Derby, and I got to see all the fancy houses and Chatsworth and stuff like that. And I went to Birmingham and Manchester for some conventions, and Wales and Southampton.
You went to Wales?
Yeah, I went to Wales. I visited Ben out there. There's a fantastic host, and I saw all the castles. And on the way back towards Southampton, I got to see Stonehenge. And
yes, you did. I saw the picture. Amazing.
They were kicking us out of there. I've been in that situation before, but we were like the bad teenagers that they expect to shoplift. And we meant no disrespect to the monument. We were just having fun with our goofy Bitcoin flag, but they did not like it at all. So,
I'm not surprised.
They probably thought it was some horrible, bad symbol of hate or something. And we're like, no, there's no hate or anything. Or that we were official. We were like, this is now the official, Bitcoin monument or something. We were there for a day, we moved on. It was fine. So, but yeah, it was great to visit England. I just loved all the slightly different things. One of the things I really like about traveling that I miss and that I found was surprising is I just like going to different stores, like different grocery stores, and seeing an aisle full of weird products I've never seen, or a bunch of weird breakfast cereals that I've never seen. It's just the little differences. It was fun. So it was a great time.
I went, there's not many places that accept Bitcoin yet, even in London.
Yep.
There's a few, and there's a Bitcoin cash machine at a subway station in South London. But that's about it so far. So
yeah, it's definitely more online than we might have pictured. But we're only in the first 10 years or so of Bitcoin. We just got to give it more time. But it's funny, almost every city I go to, eventually we'll see a sign for a Bitcoin ATM. Just out of nowhere at a grocery store or something like that. And I'll be like, wow, grab the camera, Bitcoin sign. But yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, we're not everywhere, but there's at least one close to somebody. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks so much for the call.
Lots of big companies, large companies are getting involved.
Yeah. We're seeing
Cheers.
And give us a call anytime. And thanks for sharing your story. I hope your wife recovers soon. I hope the rest of the family does good too. So.
Nice to catch up. Look after yourself, Thomas. Take care.
Thanks so much, Sean. And if you'd like to give us a call now, you can call us on Skype at World Crypto Network, or let me get the phone number up. Hopefully the phone number is working. Google sends me weird messages sometimes, but if you want to test out the phone number is 1-518-600-1949. Or you can call us on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Share your coronavirus story. Do you know anyone that had it? Do you know no one at all that had it? Was this your first example of someone sharing the story? Here we go. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, this pandemic is obviously a globalist plot by the Zionist Jew lizards. And no, I'm just kidding, Thomas. It's Marty from San Jose.
Hey, Marty, how's it going? I thought you'd gone over there, man. I thought you'd bought up on the other side.
Yeah, no, I'm straight and narrow.
So how's it going down there in San Jose? You staying inside, or have you been to the mall?
Well, no, I haven't been to the mall. I went to Home Depot, and the hardware stores have been the only stores that have remained open, and they've become sort of like a family event.
It is.
You know,
it is an
there.
outing. Yeah, I see people going to the parks in teams for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little frustrating because I don't want to come into contact with people, and I'm like a handyman / contractor, and I have to go there to get material.
Sure.
And you know, everyone and their grandma is perusing the aisles at Home Depot, and it's you know, what can you do? You know what the thing is though, a lot of people here are wearing masks, so I will say that there's the handful of knuckleheads that roam around the aisles without a mask, and you know, I had to say something to him. I said, "Put on a fucking mask." Excuse my language, but you got to confront those people. You have to tell them it's
a tough thing because the mask doesn't protect you; it protects other people. So it's more about societal guilt. And if you give a crap about other people, I mean, I know I would feel terrible if I coughed and if I had the thing and if I, you know, hurt some grandmother. I mean, I just think of it that, or some young kid, or even as we saw with the caller, you know, his wife was middle-aged, but perhaps a little overweight. It's very dangerous to get the virus if you have those conditions. And I wouldn't want to be personally responsible. And in Asia, that's just their attitude. They just put the masks on. They feel a little cough. They feel a little tingle. Sure, they still have to go to work. Maybe they don't have enough sick time and that kind of thing like we do, but we don't have it. But yeah, they wear the mask, and it's perfectly acceptable. Right. Even I was watching the new Spider-Man, or one of the new Spider-Man movies, the one in Europe, which is really fun because I went to all those places. But yeah, they were walking through the airport, and of course it was pre-virus times. But there was a handful of Asian people in the movie who were wearing masks. And it was just a part of their culture that when they go to the airport, they don't want to spread disease, so they wear a mask. And I think we need to learn from that. I think we need to adopt that and make that a part of our culture. And sure, it's difficult while the president is too macho to wear a mask, and he doesn't seem to care about killing grandmothers if he had the disease, which is horrible. And he just sets such a bad example. Like, it's a macho thing. Like, he is too strong. Like, that's I don't know. There's much more there. Yeah.
But the macho, but that's what I don't understand about how. Okay, so they think, oh yeah, I'm being macho. I'll go out, and I see this in working in construction and stuff. Mm-hmm. Guys won't wear masks for dust.
When they do like ducting, or when they use like unsafe materials like painting machines and stuff.
Or cutting wood, or sanding. I don't need a mask. I'm not a pussy. It's not about being a pussy. No. It's about protecting yourself. Like, you're not. Mentality. Honestly, it's more a sign of weakness in my mind. Because in a lot of these guys too, they're in their 50s and 60s, and they've got mental health problems. They're barely.
Looks like we're starting to lose, Martin. You're starting to lose your audio, so I don't know. Maybe stand near a window or something. But
Oh, here. Okay.
No worries. But no, I mean, I feel the same thing. I remember it was a long time ago, but I remember my grandfather. And he was the strongest person I knew, and he used to climb poles for PG&E. So when the power went out, they'd call him up in the middle of the night, and he'd go climb the pole and fix the power, right?
Oh,
Manly
sounds
man.
like a badass.
He wouldn't wear rings because as an electrical person, when you touch that wire, if you've got metal on your hand, that's not happening. Like, he's not doing that. So he wouldn't wear rings his whole life, and just the strongest right until the end, and the heart attacks, and those kind of things. But even then, he was stronger than me. I was a young kid and all that, but no, he was always stronger. And with the older guys like you're working with in construction, the paint fumes and the wood chips and these things are going to affect them too. Like, even if you're bold and strong and you're a wrestler or you do MMA or Brazilian jiu-jitsu or any of these things, like, you're still a human affected by these things. And the virus is no different. And sure, we can't see it. It's not in the air. I mean, they had that great video recently. I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter, but it was the blacklight video. They put a little bit of the blacklight stuff on one guy's hand, and then they had everybody eat dinner from a buffet. And when they got to the end, everyone had that stuff on their hands. And we just don't realize, I mean, how scary all these germs and everything spreading. In the past, they used to just not believe in them. Before pasteurization, and we started curing things with germs and starting really accepting their existence, we just denied it. We just, things happened because of the humors. You had bad humors inside you, and so you got disease. So we're going to take you to the barber, and we're going to have him drain your blood so we can get rid of those bad humors. That was our level of science. Right. And if people want to go back to that, and people don't want vaccines, I was watching another show yesterday, and they were just completely celebrating and reminding us how important the polio vaccine was, and how many people were getting polio, and what a crippling disease it was, and how Jonas Salk just committed himself to curing it. And when he got the testing vaccine, he tested it on his children first. That's his dedication to this. And then when it was time to make money on the vaccine, he said no. He said, I'm giving this to the people. This vaccine's for Earth, for humans. And, I'm sure he made lots of money in lots of other ways. And they have a foundation now. They interviewed his son. And that's what it used to be like. And that was the polio vaccine. That saved, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. The smallpox vaccine saved hundreds of thousands of people. These are incredible scientific developments. And while, sure, we should all be afraid of chips in our skin and evil government conspiracies and fluoride and that kind of thing, if you really think on a large scale, on a global scale, they could make a vaccine and put anything in it that's not in the official ingredients list, give me a break. Sure, maybe here and there, and I'm not going to be the first one in line or whatever, but the vaccine's the way out of this. Science is the way out of this. Sure, you don't have to understand it. I don't have to go to doctor school. Other people did. But let's trust them. Let's give them a chance.
Yeah.
We want them to listen to us about Bitcoin because we went to Bitcoin school and we learned all about Bitcoin for years and years and years. And we read lots of articles and we watched the price go up and down and up and down and up and down. And we're trying to tell them about Bitcoin. We want them to listen to us. When they tell us about medicine, we should listen to them. When they tell, an engineer tells me about engineering, I listen to him. If you wanted to tell me about, construction and building things, I would listen to you. Like, people who have expert advice, like the smart thing. And again, this goes back to a classic internet text file. There's an old one going around, like 101 things I would do if I was an evil genius, right? And my favorite one is, those high-paid, high-trained advisors that I pay lots of money for? Occasionally, I would listen to them. It's shocking. I know, as an evil genius, you would listen to your advisors, but they might have useful information. And that's just what I think about this medicine thing. I mean, even if we don't know everything, and even if we're wrong and it doesn't kill as many people as people want, and they're all like, damn, it's not violent enough, we should have stayed out, we're not going to know till afterwards. We're in the middle of a hurricane right now. Like, the boat's going up and down. It's great to say the boat's really high or the boat's really low, or I believe the boat will never sink. But we're not going to know until we're out of the hurricane. We got to get out of this crisis, right?
In this case, what the evil genius is doing, he's pushing the button and the chair falls into the lava pit. Is what I'm seeing here with our good man Trump.
It's getting worse and worse out there. At first, I was only arguing with my friend Will on hydroxychloroquine and being completely surprised that he continues to refuse evidence after evidence of study after study, just saying that they're fake or false or somehow manipulated. But But yeah, to go from that to the president claiming that he's taking it, it's just a big downfall for America. It's very sad. But you know, a lot of people believe in this and they're sticking with it. And there was just another story the other day of a Florida man who, much like a lot of people in the audience, denied the virus. He said it was no big deal. It was no problem. He kept going out. Now he and his wife are both sick and in the hospital. And he was giving an impassioned plea to anyone that would listen to just take this seriously. Sometimes things happen that we don't understand. I mean, this is a global, worldwide crisis. It's not planned. It's not expected. We didn't prepare for it. And we're not prepared for it. And it's going to happen. And do we have to print money? Yes. Do we have to stay home? Yes. Is this ideal? No. But again, London during the Blitz, what do you want to do? You want to go out up on the surface? You want to deny the Nazi bombers? You say that those sounds aren't bombers? You say that that building probably fell down on its own? Is that really what you want to say? Is that how you want to be remembered? So
it's crazy. People are reveling in their ignorance now. And it's been like that. You know, it's been cool to be stupid.
Yep.
Right? I don't read. Oh, I don't do nothing. You know, I go home, you know, that sort of mentality. There's a guy who comments on your videos. He cracks me up. He calls it the meatheadism. And it's true. I forget his name. He sounds like a cool dude.
Roy
Roy.
Yeah, Roy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the meatheadism, man. The cultural meatheadism.
It does seem like we've gone pretty far into idiocracy. And I know it started out as a comedy and now it's a documentary and a lot of people watch it very seriously. But yeah, I kind of, and then there's the other side of this. I was saying to Ben recently on the old chat somewhere, and I was saying, maybe we've denied science so much that we kind of deserve this virus. And I don't think that's a positive thing, and I don't think that's a good thing, but, you know, kind of a karmic retribution for so much denial of science and so much not teaching civics and not explaining to people how the world's interconnected. And, you know, if that guy doesn't have health care and he shows up to his job at the grocery store and he gets everyone at the grocery store sick, maybe we should let him have health care. We should let him have some days off so that everyone doesn't get sick, so that the whole GDP doesn't go down. Even as selfish people interested in money, we can see how caring for others, having a more compassionate and a more inviting system would actually produce better results. We have to look at the results, right? Begin with the end in mind. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Like, it's not just a self-help book. It's really valuable. Like, a lot of it's common sense, but it's a really valuable common sense book that people should read. I give it to college students.
Cool, man. Hey, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Not about the virus. So I was sending a Bitcoin transaction the other night, and you know, you can leave a note.
Sure.
On the transaction and I tried to search for this, but I couldn't find anything. Does that note stay in the blockchain, or is it just something that you can see?
I think it depends on the software you're using. I do know there's a way to write things into the blockchain, and there's certainly like a recent block where they put that quote of the possible new bailouts in, something like that. So there is a way to kind of leave markers.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was really cool. The mining people.
That was amazing, dude. I was watching that. I was watching your show live.
Oh, thanks, man.
And and that was an amazing show, by the way. And that the guy who posted on Twitter that little message in the block, it was like everything coming full circle here.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
I think it's probably more likely that that's a note for like your file, or like a memo line and a check where maybe your software is showing you that. You'd have to check on the individual software if it actually does write it in the blockchain. There used to be kind of web pages you could go to, and maybe they would include your message in the next block. I'm not sure if that's still a thing. But yeah, there is some kind of a space in the blockchain for like a notes field. And of course they've already added, everything good and everything bad to the blockchain. So I'm sure the Quran's in there, and the Bible's in there, and child porn is in there, and every kind of good
years back.
Yeah, every kind of good and bad thing's probably been added to the blockchain, so that you can say, hey, you should ban the blockchain because it contains, this kind of good thing inside or this kind of bad thing inside, depending on your opinion. So,
right, that was years ago. They were saying, "Oh my God, this is the end. The Bitcoin's dead. There's China."
They were definitely mad, but remember, it was likely just links to the thing. Although, if you really wanted to get down it, I suppose you could break the image or whatever up into lines of code and include the lines of code in the thing. And if you reassembled them, I guess you'd get the horrible image. I don't know. Not giving anyone any ideas out there, but you probably already thought of it.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, man. The halving was awesome.
It was pretty cool.
That was a cool thing.
Yeah, it's just the number changing down, but once it's done, it never gets undone. And it's also really neat that it wasn't really planned by a human. There wasn't any kind of council or any kind of, are you sure we should do this in the middle of the virus with all this economic and stock market problems and all this? And they're like, no, the code just did it on its own. It didn't really matter what the humans thought. The code just took care of it. So.
Yep. And that's one of the amazing things about Bitcoin is it's almost like it's got this mind of its own. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of was released and is just spread its wings, and I think within the next 5 to 10 years we're going to really see it soar. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I think so. I think one of the best things about Bitcoin is that it's hard to change. And sure, it's fun to say that 21 million is locked in forever and all that, and we hope it stays that way. But all that we can really say is that it's very hard to change that. You would need a lot of programmers. You need all the miners. And as we saw with the SegWit and the UASF and the No2X movements, you'd also need the users. If the users don't go with it, this is the internet. We'll create a copy of your project. We'll create a fork. And 6 months later, the fork will be more popular than the original. So don't let that happen to you.
Oh, man. Well, all right, Thomas. Hey, thanks for doing the show.
Yeah, it was fun. I woke up, I had a cough, but I thought I'd do it anyway. So, but yeah, it was really good.
Hey.
And I think we got the news out there, that kind of thing. So
you got to soldier on.
That's right. Well,
right.
I was thinking about that line this morning. It says, the show must go on.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to watch Shakespeare in Love now just for that one goofball line. But I still like it. I think it's a fun movie. Lots of good quotes in that thing. So.
Hey, do you take vitamins?
I'm trying to take, I'm supposed to actually take the vitamin and some neem oil and some Gaducci, some immune boosters.
Okay.
But I've not been taking them recently, so I need to get more on the good habits of taking those things.
I hate referencing the Joe Rogan show. I'm like, oh man. But there was a good one.
Guests.
Yeah. Dr. Rhonda Patrick. That was a good one. She was talking about how most of the people that died, I think it was a crazy percentage, like 90, 96, 98% of those that died were deficient in vitamin D. And vitamin D is heavily linked to the function of your immune system. And that, only 4% of those that died were vitamin D sufficient. So it's just a really interesting thing. Now, who knows, right? Maybe that's only a part of the puzzle. But
I've definitely heard that as well, and I feel weird doing it. But around noontime or something, I've been trying to go outside and stand in the sun for 15 minutes, and I don't know how much time I'm supposed to do or whatever. Probably going to get sunburnt with a pale guy like me, but no, and definitely I think a lot of my fellow computer geek friends and book friends and all that kind of thing, we spend way too much time inside. So if we could improve this by going outside and standing in the sun for half an hour, let's give that a shot. That's pretty inexpensive.
Right. No.
And all those other things, like we should try. Like, I don't think that's going to harm you other than a possible sunburn or maybe some dehydration. But it's apparently really cool out today. So
Well, we need the sun. We need physical activity. It's just a part of, you know, part of being human. I mean, I used to work for this guy over in Berkeley, building these pirate radios. He was like a RF wizard, and he had this company called Free Radio Berkeley. And I was it was just me and him, and I would basically assemble them for him. And I learned a lot from him about electronics and how radio transmitters work and stuff like that. So, you know, I do construction and shit to pay the bills, but, you know, I've been on other paths, and just sitting there in a single place doing a task for an extended period of time is just really detrimental. Like, there's just no way around it. And so, I mean, I learned that I'm happiest if I'm out there moving. And then that's the thing about, you know, construction and carpentry and all that. You have to use your mind and your body. And it's this kind of symbiosis between the two that for me, it keeps me most sane. I go off the deep end, man. If I don't get that movement, you know, your thoughts, they start to loop, and then it's a bad thing. So getting, you know, out into the sun for at least a little bit, exercising, moving around, it's just so good for the spirit, for the soul, for everything, you know.
I agree. I definitely think so. Yeah, and it sounds a bit like the end of the movie Office Space here, but I would agree with you anyway. Getting outside, working with your hands, going camping, being in the forest, all of these kind of things are a fantastic way to really experience what it's like to be a human. You know, we forget too much. We stay inside. Like, I'm a computer person, or I'm a book person, I'm a movie person. But there's a lot of stuff out there that's not just pre-recorded entertainment, or isn't typing, it isn't mousing, and these kind of things. So we do have those options. Fortunately, some people don't. If you're locked in a small apartment, you got to kind of make do with what you got. But hopefully, if you can get out, do some social distancing, go to the park, or just walk around the streets, get some exercise. Even right now, I stood up. You know, I'm doing the standing desk thing, and just trying to stretch it out, because it's too much if you sit in the chair too long. So
no, and your blood can't flow, and it's, you know, you feel your arms and your legs get cold, and but once, like, it's crazy. It's hard to get that ball moving. But once you get that momentum and you're doing something physical for about 15, 20 minutes, it's all it takes to feel better. It's literally all. Like, I'll wake up some mornings, I have a headache, I feel like shit, I don't want to do anything. But if I go and I rake the leaves in the yard, or if I, you know, just take care of something around the house, and that's all it is. It's just getting that push, that little bit of motivation. I understand it's really, really hard right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen. It's uncertain. It's scary, dude. At the start of this, I was shitting my pants. I didn't want to leave the house. I was having panic attacks, staying up late, researching feverishly. Oh my God, this is it. This is the, and, you know, but that I had to get it out of my system.
Well, that can also happen in reverse, that you don't care about it very much at first, but then maybe something happens, or your friends get sick, or something gets close to you, and suddenly you have to know everything about this thing. So. Oh,
exactly. That's what I was afraid of. So and everyone deals with things a different way. And for me, I had to just, confront it. This is gonna hit us, man. Like, there's no two ways about it, unfortunately. But that's the reality. We don't have a choice. We just have a choice of what we, you know, our small circle. And it does affect the larger scale, but, you know, like, we just got to stay positive.
I agree. I think
and exercise.
One of the most important lessons out there is that you're not alone, that everyone else feels that same way. I read an article about Italy today, and they were saying that 70% of the population of Italy was having, just like you're describing, they were having trouble sleeping. They were having panic attacks. They were just being nervous all the time. They were having anxiety. And these are a lot of people that maybe don't normally have this, right? It's a new thing for them. They don't have maybe the coping strategies or the anxiety medication that maybe some of the other people here do have. So it is, it's a very scary and strange time. And it's a perfectly normal reaction. Even a lot of people in the chat, I mean, it's easier to think you know everything. It's easier to say it's a hoax and a scam. And there's a good friend of mine. He's all into the conspiracy theories and stuff. And he's like, hey, this looks like a put up job. And normally I'm right there with him. I'm like, yeah, it does look kind of fake. And yeah, this and this and that and that. But at this time, I really think this is a random occurrence of a horrible virus that has gotten too big because we didn't close it down fast enough, and that we need to deal with it in a scientific manner. And if it comes out later that it's a put up job and it's a conspiracy and somebody becomes king and all that, well, we're going to have our revolution then. Like when all of the evidence is out, the information is out, let's do it. But until then, it's
you
a
were talking
scientific
about
problem.
Pascal's wager.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Like you don't have anything to lose by taking it seriously, but you have everything to lose by not, your life potentially.
Absolutely.
Right? Like if you go out there and don't take precautions, or you could get the people around you sick.
Yeah, the lives of your family.
Nothing.
Look at the caller today who was Sean in England, who was just, his family was willing to live downstairs. The wife lived upstairs in the bedroom. She had the thing. That's what you have to do. And there's even a story like this going on. I should have got him on for an interview. I haven't asked him. But I think Michael Casey, or one of the guys, is a big guy who writes for CoinDesk. He's immunocompromised, right? So from the beginning of this thing, he hasn't just been isolating like we have, where we can go outside and stuff. He's been locked in his room. And just like Sean was describing, his family is taking care of him. Every time he goes to the restroom, he has to disinfect everything. His food is left outside the door. There's really no contact, no physical contact, certainly. And that's what they're doing to try to keep him alive. And that's just one guy. And he wants to write articles about Bitcoin. He's got a family and he wants to live with them in the future. He has things to live for. So for him, it's okay, not just quarantine, not just isolation, but staying in a room for months and months and months to try to live through this thing. So there are people taking this very seriously. And
others are in complete denial.
I know. And I wish I could be in denial with you guys. Like, I know they want this show to go differently. They're like, why is he messing with us? Why is he, giving us all this evidence that we don't want to hear? And
we don't know. We don't know enough.
And this is the best information I have. And given the best information I have, I don't think it's a put up job at all. Right? I don't think that they're going to infect us with an evil vaccine that makes us zombies or put computer chips in our brains. Like, I do think eventually they might do that, but I don't think they're going to do it right now in the middle of the crisis. It's, it's sure they've got plans on shelves. But other than the economic stuff that they've been doing really great on for themselves, I don't think they have, plans on shelves. I don't think this is a conspiracy issue. I think it's a random thing that happened and we're dealing with it. So,
right.
But I want to go back a little bit. Nuts. You were talking about radio, and I'm reading a documentary, or I'm reading a biography about Richard Feynman, and I think it's going to be a critical biography because I've read his autobiographies, and he's kind of presented this hero of science kind of story, and I think there's a lot more there. So I'm interested to see it. But one of the things that he started out on was radio sets and crystal radio sets. And as the author was saying, you could see the path of the electricity on these old circuit boards. And you could really kind of understand the radio, which gives you the understanding of electricity and gives you an understanding of radio waves. And, it just might make a physicist out of you. And he said that this is how we used to get a lot of physicists, and that we've lost this because there's no experimentation in radio and no one builds crystal sets. So I was really interested when you said you were checking out radio.
I'm getting chills.
So,
you're exactly right, because when you're looking at FM is something different. Frequency modulation, they call that
satellite radio is different and all that for sure.
Yeah, fucking magic is what FM stands for. But the AM, like an analog, like we were talking about crystal set. I mean, you can see where you're talking about the path of the electrons, the traces on the board, and likely when he was tinkering with them, they were standoffs. I forget the right word. They didn't have circuit boards back then.
They had tubes, right? So it was all vacuum tubes and
tubes, and they wired everything together inside the box with they were there was no circuit board.
Sure.
It was just a
wires.
resistor from the leg of the tube to the other leg of the tube, and but when you're looking at it, I mean, you're basically you're creating an oscillation in the circuit, and the intent, it's fucking nuts, man. It's fucking, I'm not the best at articulating myself, but I know what he's talking about. And, the circuit is oscillating, and it's nuts.
Well, and in his version, in the autobiographical version, he describes these early events where, he would convince adults that he was a genius by fixing their radios. And that there was a guy he went to, and, he's maybe 5 years old, 6 years old. He's just a real little kid, but he understands these radios. And the guy's like, well, I turn it on and there's a hum. And so, of course, Richard's just endlessly fascinated by this radio, taking it all apart, figuring it out, and he fixes it. And the guy can't believe it. He's never turned on his radio and not had this hum before. And this little kid's fixed it. And he just completely 180'd. He switched. He went from being a denier of Feynman to a celebrator and telling everyone in town how this little kid fixed his radio and how he'll fix your radio. And just, the confidence this must have given the early Feynman that, in some small way, he was a radio scientific genius, at least in his little town. And, I hope kids are doing this with programming and with more advanced radio sets and whatever else they have now. But I just worry if we're not studying science, if we're not celebrating science, if we're getting into a situation like this and trusting politicians who are very unscientific, right? The beauty, what you really want in a politician right now is, of course, the philosopher king, right? You want Voltaire or Plato. You want those. The people that don't want to be king are the best ones to be king because they're more likely to listen to their advisors. What you want right now is a person who just becomes a copy of the scientific advisors. When the scientific advisors tell him something, he intakes it, he understands it, and he repeats it to people to improve their information. Sadly, we have a person who's denying science, who's denying his advisors, who's saying bizarre things like, vaccine or not, we're reopening the country. That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
Like, that's just...
it is crazy talk.
Yeah. And I know...
Isn't the leader of Denmark, I think it's Denmark, right? He was like some kind of astrophysicist, or...
I don't know.
Are you aware of that?
That does sound awesome if that's true. That's the kind of person who can really listen to this, Yeah.
Right. Yeah, a lot of those European countries, I mean, they, with the exception of Sweden, which interestingly I read, they have the highest death per capita out of any country in the world now. So if any of these people say, oh, we need to reopen, look at Sweden, they've stayed open. Yeah, they have the highest death per capita.
Yeah, they have.
And they
have 3 to 6 times the amount of deaths as the other Scandinavian countries, their neighbors. And Sweden has a fantastic public health system. They all have health care. They all have a system that they could have used to test and trace. But they just opened it all up and let the people die. And one of the things about this idea that's going around of herd immunity, that's a veterinary term. That's for animals. Like, if your cows get sick, you hope they develop herd immunity, and you don't mind if a bunch of cows die because you're probably going to kill them anyway for hamburger. Is that the true for our human population? You don't care if the old people die because you were going to murder them and eat them as hamburger? Come on. I mean, I know we're not supposed to invoke Godwin's law or whatever it is to take us back, but that wasn't that long ago. And I certainly watched the Man in the High Castle series on Amazon based on the Philip K. Dick novel. And there's a lot of creepy things happening there about people going into gas chambers in buildings and then not coming out. And, maybe they were inferior. I don't think you want to go down that line. I don't think you want to join those people. But if that's where you want to stand and just say that the old people should die and we should reopen, seems like a very greedy young person idea, and the kind of idea that's going to come back to bite you later on when you become old and they want to sacrifice
Oh,
you.
yeah.
So I always think empathetically, you know, that this is going to happen to me, or I'm going to be, you know, it spreads through an old folks home. I think we're all going to be in old folks homes later on if it works out. I don't want that to be us. You don't want, you know, like, got to think that way. Maybe that faculty is broken inside some of these people, but they need to work on it. They need to reach through it. I mean, even just, you know, the guy called from England, I feel for his wife. I feel for his kids. I don't know him. He seems like a nice guy. I feel for all kinds of people that I haven't met. And, you know, maybe that makes me weak or something. But, you know, I think it's important. I think it's part of being a human being. And even though we aren't seeing it from the president and the leadership, that's no reason to stop being human. That's no reason to put away those feelings. I know other people did that. They said they had to pay the mortgage. They said they had to run the trains, and they said they had to run the camps, and they said they had to run the tanks and all these things because they had to pay the mortgage. And you know what they did in those trials? They punished them too. So.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing though. I don't think I'll ever take a test. You know, if this was the sort of thing where the virus, once you get it, it stays latent, you know, dormant until your immune system is down, and they're going to know, you know, who has it and where, and, you know, what are they going to do with those people? I don't know. I'm waiting on that stuff, man. I'm not going to be the first to take the vaccine. I'm not going to be
Well, and fortunately, thanks to science, unless you want to volunteer for the experiments, you won't have to be. I mean, the 8 people who tested the vaccine already did so on their own as part of the program. There's going to be 600 people that test the next round of the Moderna vaccine. Certainly, they're testing other vaccines as well. But yeah, by the time it gets to us, it's going to be tested on thousands of people. And remember, a vaccine is like a weakened version of the disease, and they test it so that they can get the percentages and other more complicated things right. So, you know, I've trusted in science my whole life. Like, I've trusted in NASA, I've trusted in doctors and, you know, all these other things. And when I'm hurt, I go to a doctor and they have more information than me. And this really works out. And
but they're not infallible.
No,
like, they're capable of mistakes too.
Yeah.
And then I think the main concern, maybe, it's fine. People survive the vaccine. Maybe further down the line, they develop some kind of complication, because that has happened before. During the Gulf War, they gave U.S. soldiers the anthrax vaccine, and a lot of them came back with severe neurological disorders. You had, you know, they were seriously fucked up from that. And there's a lot of instances of a vaccine, being more harmful than good. And it's more long term. Like, we don't know. We just don't know. The body is
that's
complex.
why we test it. And it's similar. I mean, right now with those laser eye surgery, we don't have 50 years of laser eye surgery numbers to really give you. You know, we have 10 or 20. I mean, we just don't have that much. That's why one of the reasons I'm not into that. I don't know what happens later on, right, with that kind of thing.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, the eye surgery. Well, personally, I'm just not into it. Again, people can do what they want. I'm not advising against it or anything. But I didn't know. Well, we just don't know. And what they have said is it kind of wears off. Like, so far, they kind of think that it's a wearing off process, which is fine. You know, you have better vision for a long time, and then later on, it gets a little worse. And then maybe they do it again.
Oh, shit.
I don't know what they're going to do. But and it's probably really.
I've never heard that.
And again, it's very small. It's just a very small caveat that it's a new treatment. Any new treatment, plastic surgery, we just haven't had that very long. Like, and then they've learned a lot. They don't put silicone inside of people anymore. They put saline, right? They figured out silicone, if it links, could poison a person. Saline, if it leaks, it's salt water, right? So it's better. And they probably have even better things.
When were they putting silicone?
Breast implants.
When were they putting silicone?
Breast implants.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. A lot of.
Oh, yeah, because they actually called them silicone implants.
Yep.
They were actual like a lubricant silicone.
Yeah. I don't know the exact chemical compound, but I think they mainly wanted the feel, right? They wanted that kind of cushy feel. We're getting really dirty here, but
Yeah.
and then the saline, like a bag of saline, would be different, obviously. But if you were the person, you know, getting the treatment, getting the surgery, oh, you would want the safest thing inside you. I mean, I'd be scared to death to have some other thing, and especially for such a cosmetic reason. But even now with it was funny. I was reading Fight Club yesterday here on the air, and you know, I don't know if this is medically true. It was in the Fight Club book, but they were talking about different kinds of collagen and how collagen from humans, at least in the book, or your own fat, is better and it'll stick with you longer. Whereas collagen from animals and other sources will actually get absorbed back into the body, and you know, your plush lips would go away, and maybe you'd have to get another collagen treatment. So same thing with the eyes and stuff. But these are all, you know, augmented. What is it called? Like, you know, unnecessary surgery.
Yeah.
Like so
was worrying
optional.
about one of those things is the Botox.
Yeah. A lot of people are getting that. It's weird.
Oh my God. Well, people don't know, right?
It's chicken. It's botulism, right? Too. It's a chicken botulism that they put into your face. Yeah.
Yeah, you eat that shit and you die, right? Like if you get botulism in a can, you're done. There's no.
But I want my forehead to be less wrinkly or something, right? Some kind of choice.
Oh, brother, that's yeah.
I don't understand any of that at all. But then it's a totally different situation. If you're a woman, it's very different for your image and all these kind of things. As a man, I can't even understand that. So I'm just going to
I know.
Decide.
Well, you could, yeah. Men, we get wrinkly and shriveled and, you know, our you know, we're not.
We get better looking.
Different.
It's a total scam. Yeah.
Well, so they say.
I'm still waiting. But yeah, it's going to turn around one of these days.
Like we'll be like fine wine. I did one of those. So they say you're not supposed to do it, but the Face Ager app, that was going around.
Upload your high school photos so we can have different photos of you from different times. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I fell for it.
How did it look?
Dying to know.
Was it terrifying? I mean, what'd you think?
It was, yeah, man. I mean, because it's always so hard to picture yourself old. And, I don't know how accurate it is. I mean, hopefully I find out, but it's weird. It's weird.
I remember in the Seinfeld once, Kramer was imitating the Marlboro Man or something, and he'd started smoking cigars in his room, and they had all kinds of people in his office, and he aged like 20 years in 10 weeks, and they had that picture of him, and he looked all brown, and his skin was all wrinkled, and they put a bunch of makeup on it. That's what I imagine it would look like. It would just look like your eyes in an old wrinkly face.
Yeah, I remember that Kramer. He's got the crow's feet, and he just looks like he's been walking through a desert.
He's hideous. He's hideous. He's repulsive. Yeah. Repulsive. That guy was so good doing the Jackie and the other lawyer from the OJ trial. So good. Johnny Cochran. That's who it was. Yeah.
Dang, man. All right. Well, I better go. Thanks again for doing the show, and I'm always staying tuned.
Well, good stuff, man. Thanks for calling in, and give us a call anytime. We'll chat again. So. Okay,
Thomas. All right, take care of yourself.
All right, stay safe, Marty. All right, we do have time, maybe one more phone call if you guys want to call right in pretty quickly. You could call us now at 1-518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Probably going to head towards the end of the show here in just a couple minutes, but if you do have another call, we could take it. 3 calls is pretty cool. 2 calls is good too, though. So checking out the price of Bitcoin. It's been moving while we've been talking, but not very much. The price of Bitcoin is up 0.11% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,649, a high of 9,878, and a low of 9,457. That's $1 for 10,364 Satoshis. It's kind of neat to try to think of Bitcoin in Satoshis. We've been covering it here for a long time. Oh, here we go. We got a phone call. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. This is Dan from Grand Rapids. How are you?
Hey, Dan. Good to hear from you again. How's it going?
Yeah, good, good. Hey, I was thinking about, I've been walking around the stores and stuff like that, seeing people without masks, and I'm determined at this point that they are, they're virtue signaling that they're a part of this group that is smarter than everybody else and doesn't feel like the virus is real. And so the virtue that they're signaling is, look at me and look at how smart I am and how dumb all of you are. What they don't realize is that they're actually signaling the exact opposite of that, which I think is kind of funny. But I've thought about and wanted to confront these people at stores, but I know that they're waiting for it.
Sure.
They're just waiting for somebody to go, hey, you're kind of an asshole for not wearing a mask, because then they get to talk about all of the things that makes them smart and you dumb and attempt to convince you why that is. And so it's just, there's just no winning. There's no winning at all. And the thing that I think about most is, what would it take for someone to realize that they're wrong? I myself, I'm a big fan of scientific consensus. And I think if you don't have scientific consensus, what do you have? What are your trusted resources to tell you what's actually going on in the world? Because if you're only listening to the echo chamber, or you're only listening to, say, who not black, or then you've really just made the decision that you're only going to listen to things that can confirm your opinion already, and you're not willing to say, hey, gee, here's some extra evidence that we now have received, and therefore I need to reevaluate my opinion based on this other opposing viewpoint. And I think that's important no matter what side of any argument that you're on, is to realize that you may gain more knowledge at some point, and you may have to admit that you were incorrect about something. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think that it's a character trait, not a character flaw. So I think that there's just a group of people, not a specific group, but just any people in a population that they've made the decision that that's what they think, and they don't want anybody to change the thing they think. And it's really not that much different than, say, I was a Lions fan for a long time and refused to admit, even based on their record, that they were an awful team. And I still rooted for them, and no one could change my mind. And I still watched.
And you'd wear the hat. You'd wear the hat everywhere.
I'd wear the hat.
People would challenge you, say the team's no good. Yep. Yeah, I think we're right.
And I'd be like, metaphor. No, but right, yeah. So people just want to root for their team, and they want to be, and it's a tribal thing. And so you really end up having to pick your battles. I usually, when I get in a debate, with if somebody feels strongly about something, I usually start with, what would it take to change your mind? What would it take to say, hey, you know what, you are right. I didn't consider this other evidence, and at least not even change your mind, but consider the opposing viewpoint. And I think a lot of people just would say, well, nothing's going to change my mind. Okay, well, then I guess we're done with the conversation, because it holds no value for me and it holds no value for you. So we're done talking. So yeah, I just think it's people that are virtue signaling, and they're waiting for somebody to say something so that they can then unleash their logic bomb on the person and prove that they're better than them.
Yeah, I definitely think they're not trying to be convinced, And one of the neat things that I learned from doing debate in high school is that we would always debate both sides of the issue. So whether it be immigration or China or any of the other issues that we debated, and, we studied these for a year. I know a lot about, at least in the 90s, about China and about immigration and healthcare, actually. It was kind of the biggest issues in the world, and we debated them. So it's interesting to see them come up over and over again. I mean, I never thought I'd be still talking about the Canadian healthcare plan. I thought that was a high school debate thing. But yeah, I would argue either side. You flip a coin, I'll do negative, I'll do affirmative. I've got a case full of data on both of them. And again, I'm generally going to argue the same way. I'm going to argue with evidence. Sometimes I would argue with emotions. I'm capable. But that's generally how I'd argue. And I felt back then very much, when we'd win the debates, we would win because we had the evidence, because we had done better preparation and better research. And when they looked at it, they said our evidence was better than the other evidence, and we presented it better, and we'd win. And it's tough on this. I really thought the vaccine news yesterday, and I don't want to overhype it. They did a test of 8 people. They raised $1.34 billion. Their stock went up 70%. The entire market went up 900 points, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And gosh, I thought it was really good news. I thought I was bringing it to you guys yesterday as good news. And I even tried to cut, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe we get a different vaccine or something. There's problems. But no, I got totally negative comments in the chat and totally negative comments afterwards, just denying the virus and saying Bill Gates was going to poison all of us. And I like the cuck. They're always about this cuck word or the coward thing. They've got the whole, insult language. And again, when you fall into insulting someone, you lose. Like, you've completely lost the argument. I was talking to Giacomo Zucco on Twitter, and he said I should go take my pills. I called the judges for an ad hominem. It was confirmed. The flag went down, and it's over. I don't have to talk to him anymore. Like, if you fall to that level, it's like, oh, I see you lose the debate, and I'm moving on. Bring on your next champion. Because that champion was not very strong. He ran out of evidence. He went to an emotional attack, and then he lost. He lost the debate. It's sad. I'm sad for him. Should try harder next time. Have better evidence. Do more research. So,
well, and I think it's one of the things that I think in any debate or discussion is to steelman your opponent's argument.
Definitely.
And honestly, if someone is not doing that, then I am much less inclined to be interested in their opinion. If someone says to me, you take big blockers, right?
Sure.
And if somebody says to me, look, I think the most important thing is to make sure that transactions are inexpensive, so poor people can use the network. That was kind of the whole point, and that's what it should be. And I look at that and go, well, okay, that's actually a pretty good point. Like, that is a legitimate argument, and then we can have a conversation from there.
Sure.
But when you get into conspiracy theories about what is it, Blockstream?
Yeah, Blockstream Core. Yeah.
Blockstream Core, and that they're somehow trying to make money based on small blocks and things. It's like, okay, well, all of that is very vague, and it really has nothing to do with the science behind the capabilities of the network. And so it made me think of it when the Satoshi video came out about Adam Back, and I think to myself, I can't understand why people can't get it through their heads that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who he was. It doesn't matter what he said 10 years ago or however many years ago. Like, none of that matters. I mean, even if it were proven that this person or that person were Satoshi, it's not like you suddenly just get right in line behind that person or that group and do whatever they say needs to be done. It's like, yes, maybe their opinion would have stronger influence in your mind, but you don't just follow it blindly. So at the end of the day, they would simply be one more respected expert whose voice you would consider. it's not something where we just say, oh, well, abandon all this stuff. All we got to do is listen to this person. And
Well, I
so
think a lot of that is they're not used to a project like Bitcoin, where, like you're saying, I mean, it's running now. The people who are building it are different than the people that were building it when I started, and they're different than the people that were building it when Bitcoin started. And, you know, that no one understands that. They think if the CEO of Bitcoin comes back, and it's another confusing thing about the word key, you know, if you have a key and you start a car, you know, you are in charge of the car. You turn it off, you turn it on, you're powerful. If you have keys in Bitcoin, sure, he controls money. He can spend it. He can send it to other people. But he's not powerful in the same way. Satoshi doesn't even have the ability to edit the core repos. And one of the reasons why they were so mad at Gavin Andreessen is because Gavin had publicly said, if Satoshi comes back, I'll give him his keys. And that was after Gavin had been tricked by Craig Wright in what we think is a controlled environment, where he presented a fake copy of his signature and he faked it somehow. And people freaked out and they're like, well, if Gavin is just going to give it to Satoshi and Gavin can't properly distinguish Satoshi from Craig Wright, we got to take away Gavin's keys so he doesn't give the keys to someone randomly. And that was a defense of Bitcoin that they did against Craig Wright. So yes, I think if Satoshi came back, he wouldn't be in charge. But the media is still obsessed with it because of those early Bitcoins. I hope that he didn't keep the keys. I hope that he just saw it as test data and threw it away, despite the fact that we all know that he would know that it's going to be worth millions and billions of dollars. But as a good thing for the network to give us that stability of having those coins never move is a great positive thing that maybe even then this guy had or team or whatever had incredible foresight with every other decision. Why don't you think he had foresight with these early coins? You know, either to get rid of them or to keep them or to never move them. So I think the media is mainly worried about him moving the coins. And they just love a mystery. They just love, if you tell them that you're anonymous, they have to figure out your anonymity just cause. So.
And here's the other thing is that even if he did have access to change the code, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change Bitcoin. It doesn't change the network. You have to get consensus. And you know, this is one of the things that when I talk to people who, you know, are fans of Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV or whatever, I just say they didn't get consensus. You know, the Bitcoin core, if you will, got consensus. None of the other forks did, and that's how the system works. Is that if you don't get consensus, you lose. And hey, I think it's fantastic. If you want to go and make a copy of the repo and you want to make a copy of the blockchain and do your own thing and start your own project, that's great. You know, go and do your thing. Like, that's what open source is. That's what it's meant for. That's awesome. And this whole, like, what is Bitcoin? What is the original? What is not the original? It's a very human-centric categorization of something that is really amorphous. You know, it's what was that the ship of Theseus or something like that, where he sails away and rebuilds his ship like in pieces, and when he gets back, he's rebuilt the entire thing, and you ask yourself the question: is that the ship of Theseus?
Yeah. Is it the same thing, or is it built upon the whole of its parts? Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I've heard that.
Yeah. And so, you know, which Bitcoin is the original Bitcoin? Well, none of them are. So
an original isn't even the right. Original doesn't matter. That just means first. What you're saying about consensus is much more important. The Bitcoin that we agree on is the Bitcoin, and we had an argument about Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV, and it turns out that they are not the Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin is still the Bitcoin, as I'm sure I probably told people back in the day. Like, they're going to lose, they're going to go away, we're going to get through this. This is another time period. Like, they're down 95% now. They've lost the @Bitcoin Twitter handle that we think they rented. They still own Bitcoin.com, but I don't know. If Roger loses enough money, maybe he'll sell it to someone more responsible. So we can always hope.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hope we at some point have a move to rational thought And just, I get it when people don't have faith in the media and things like that. I think that's understandable because there's so much hype and all that jazz. But when you can easily access what scientific consensus is. Now, can scientific consensus be wrong? Sure, it can. But from a rational standpoint, you either have to go with scientific consensus or something that is much, much less reliable. And you have a chance of the thing that you're relying on that's not scientific consensus to be wrong more often than scientific consensus does. So it's sort of it's one of these logic tricks that people play to say, well, scientific consensus was wrong about this thing or that thing. It's like, yeah, but the whole point is that they then iterate and work on getting more and more right. So science is more and more right the further you go through time. And that's just the way it works. So to totally just, like another one is the anti-vaxxers in saying, look, I disagree with scientific consensus because of this small fringe kind of theory. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, and I think that I've always sided with logic when I look at things. When I saw Colin Powell waving his little vial of anthrax at the people, telling us that we should start the Iraq War, I thought it was ridiculous. I could tell it was a vial of water. They're not going to let him on the floor with anthrax. And if he doesn't have it, then it's a visual aid. And why does he have a visual aid? Well, he's trying to convince us of something. And it just seemed very fishy. Additionally, when I saw 3 buildings collapse into their footprint on the same day and multiple airplanes completely disappear, one which crashed, there's no engines, there's no bodies, and there's no seats. The coroner said he didn't need to be there after 30 minutes because there were no bodies for him to examine. That's not a plane crash, right? So I've always been with science on this. And also, airplanes don't take down buildings. Jet fuel doesn't melt fire-reinforced steel. This was like insurance companies had tested the steel. I've seen the video of the blowtorch. It won't go through it. If you ever go to a parking garage and you see all that weird cement-looking stuff that's sprayed on the girders, that's fireproofing. It has to burn really hot to get through that. And I worked in a big building, so this was important to me. I was not going to continue working that building if they could just come down like that. And, I found out later they only come down like that on Tuesday, right? So as long as it's not Tuesday, you're fine. But, that kind of thing. And then when I saw Bitcoin, the same thing, I applied my kind of scientific logic to it. And I said, wow, it's very scarce. There's 21 million, it's locked in. It's deflationary. I like that. I don't like inflation. I do think it steals from the people. But that's, again, standard inflation. When you're in a period of crisis, you're in a period of crisis. You got to print money. Otherwise, the crisis is going to get worse. Like, that's Keynesianism. Like it or don't like it. It's, 9.99 out of 10 economists in our system are Keynesian, right? Like, more than 99%. Like, the Austrians are very small. And if you read their Wikipedia page, it also seems like they're heretics. So watch out. You're in a fringe inside a fringe. But still, I saw the Bitcoin and I got behind it and I talked about it a whole bunch. And if I was wrong and Bitcoin wasn't the thing, I'd look like an idiot and all my friends could laugh at me for wasting my time making all those videos. But I think those videos show I'm right. I think the things we're doing now show that I'm right. And I'm continuing to be right. And the same thing, if Bitcoin 2 comes out, and it's way better than Bitcoin in every way, and all the smart people agree and everyone else agrees and all these things, hey, let's do Bitcoin too. Like, I'm going to change my opinion based upon the evidence that I'm given. If they crack the code tomorrow with a quantum computers and they can just break the encryption, obviously we got big problems. We have bigger problems that the banks are also open now too, and all the other internet transactions and all that. So there's way more to gain there. But certainly we're not going to do Bitcoin if they have quantum computers. We're going to do a different algorithm or something. We're going to think about it. And that's science, and that's changing it based upon the information that you're given. And I feel like we're in a really weird time right now where the first outbreak has happened. The virus has presented itself, I think, as a serious thing. And now we're reopening, at least in the United States, and we're going back out there, and we're going to infect everybody, and we're going to make sure we spread this thing around. And we're going to have a second lockdown. It's going to be much worse, much longer, much harsher. We're probably going to see the food supply problems everyone's predicting. And I don't think we have this if we stayed home. If we stayed home a couple more months or a couple more weeks or something like that, we could really get those numbers down. And when the numbers are down, we could reopen. But to see state after state refusing to follow these numbers, I just really feel like we're watching it all in slow motion, and that it's just a car crash, and that just like in a couple more weeks we'll be on the other side of it, and we'll saying, "Wow, what a car crash! Why did they go out in the street? Why did people think that?" And it's just kind of this delusion that we're just in a bubble of delusion where people don't think it's real, and they're willing to risk it. It's a big risk. It's a really big risk if you think about it. And I know there's a lot of people that can't understand this risk. I know my dad wants to go out, right? He wants to go golfing, and he wants to go do all these things. And he's an older guy, of course, and I try to tell him, like, yeah, we're going to spend, 6 months to a year and a half locked inside. But we're going to, even you are going to get to live 5 to 10 years after this, 5 to 10 years or 20 or 30, things are good. That's awesome. That's a lot of time compared to 6 months or a year and a half. I mean, if you think you're going to die in the next 2 years, I guess you should go out and get the virus and have fun. But if you think that you're going to live 10, 20, 30, maybe even more years, you have to assume, even if it's in a post-virus thing and we all wear masks and gloves and, nothing goes back to the same, but still, I'd rather live through those, post-virus years than die as an early casualty of the virus by denying it. That's just a risk-based choice that I think everyone should make.
Yeah, and I think too that, so here's the other side of it, is that I think that the risk of death is it's low enough that it's understandable to me that some people are saying, I'm willing to take the risk. One of the things they're not factoring in is I have heard personal horror stories of people that have gotten it, and it is horrific and may cause permanent damage. So if you're just looking at the death rate and saying, well, I'm willing to tolerate that death rate, it's something that the general illness is probably not something they're considering.
I agree. It's not the death rate. There's also possibilities of permanent damage. This is a respiratory disease. So if it damages your lungs, and let's say I've heard, again, these are anecdotal evidence, but there's a thing on the internet where a guy said, his friend used to be a marathon runner. He got the coronavirus. Now he can barely breathe. He wheezes when he breathes. So there can be long-term permanent damage from this, even if you live. And like you're saying, it feels terrible to be sick. We were talking to Sean this morning. His wife had it. People stomping on her chest, losing her sense of smell, 100-degree temperature for a week, staying in bed, not being able to really move, not having any energy. Like, I don't wish this on anybody. And you're not going to be able to work during that time, even if it just goes around wiping out people and not letting them work. Like, we're not bringing back the firm. Like, the firm's not coming back. And then if we're going to go anywhere, I'm not going to movie theaters. I'm not going to concerts. I love movies and concerts. Also, every time I see a lot of people still eating restaurant food, and I guess maybe that if the food's hot, maybe it's going to cook off the virus and it won't be in there. I don't know. It used to be a germaphobe thing where you're like, oh, the guy at McDonald's touched it and another guy at McDonald's touched it and he has 3 kids and they go to school and he has a wife and she works somewhere else. There's just a lot of potential for disease there. Whereas if I touch it and I cook it, with the exception of it being handled on the way from the store and from the factory and all that kind of stuff, it's my fault. Like, if I don't wash my hands, it's my fault. And so, yeah, I think it's a responsibility thing, that I'm responsible now for my own food. And if I was out in the world traveling around, it's a lot harder to take that responsibility. You don't have a kitchen, those kind of things. But if you're stuck at home and you have food delivery, order healthy food, cook it at home and just eat it. And also a great time to learn how to cook. Maybe you didn't know before, but there's lots of great YouTube videos and books and all kinds of other things where you can learn cooking. And you can just learn how to cook the things you want to make. You don't have to learn the whole cookbook. If you don't want to learn how to make a souffle, don't learn how to make a souffle. Just learn how to cook meat or whatever it is that you eat. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, you know, and I have picked up takeout food a couple of times during the last couple of months. We're mostly cooking at home, and again, to me, it goes back to a risk I'm kind of willing to take, because there's at some point where you just say, boy, that particular food I'm craving, I really, really want, and you give into it. You know, it's to me, it's no different than a smoker that says, well, I know this cigarette's going to kill me, but I really, really want it. And they can choose to do that, and that's fine. And I mean, I would think that mathematically increases your chances of death even more than going outside when the coronavirus is around. But it's just a choice some people make. So, but I got to get going. So good to talk to you. Thanks for the show, and keep up the good work.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much for calling in, Dan, and give us a call anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. And I think it's time for us to go as well. Still looking at the price of Bitcoin, $9,673. I think it was $9,666 yesterday. So we haven't gotten very far up or down. We did manage to pull up that story for you. Florida man who downplayed coronavirus as fake crisis gets infected, warns others after ending up in the ICU with his wife. And, you know, the Florida man thought that it was a fake crisis. It was blown out of proportion. And now he says differently. Just days after he began sick, he began quarantined. He was admitted right away to the ICU. He was not put on a ventilator, but he never had more terrible aches and pains. He just felt weak and exhausted. After 3 weeks, he's come to accept that his wife may pass away. And the peace he has about it is that she'll be going home to the Lord, and he believes in miracles and hopes there's a chance she'll be healed. But he's thankful for the 8 years. Looking back, he says, I should have worn a mask in the beginning, but I didn't, and perhaps I'm paying the price for it now. But I know that if it was me that gave it to my wife, she forgives me, and God forgives him. And maybe the government was trying something and they threw it out there to distract us. He used to say that kind of thing, and now he doesn't anymore. He said it was blown out of proportion. They kept watching the news, seeing the spread. He thought nothing of it, but now his wife and himself are in the ICU. So don't let this happen to you. You have a choice. We were saying earlier about Pascal's theorem that, you know, if there is a God and you say, I don't believe in God, you could be punished horribly, right? But if there is a God and you say, I believe in God, maybe you're embarrassed a little while you live, but you're saved afterwards. So it's a better wager in Pascal's theory as a scientific person to just assume that there is a God to cover your basis. Just like this, maybe there's not a virus. Maybe the virus is fake, and years later we find out. Well, right now I'm staying home because I think there might be a virus. And if I went outside, I would wear a mask so as to not infect other people with the potential virus that's inside of me. But you have to make up your own decision on that. You have to make up your own mind. And I'm sure you're going to let us know in the comments and the chat down below. So be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share after this show ends and YouTube renders it. If you want to come back and leave a comment or have a discussion with other people in the comments, there's always lots of action in the comments if you want to get involved on either side of the issue. 88% of the Bitcoins are already mined. It's going to be very difficult for a millionaire to get one very soon. So be sure you have your Bitcoin. See how that goes. Of course, you have to make up your own mind on that too. But thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. You'll get an email that tells you about this show. Of course, the way YouTube works, if you don't click on that email, you'll stop getting it. So YouTube rewards you for consecutive things, even though you don't know about it. We've also got notifications about this show on Twitter at Mad Bitcoins or at World Crypto Net. You can check us out on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up and a share on Facebook. We're also live on Twitter and live on YouTube. I went ahead and bought Restream It for the year. So if you like that, we're going to do it for a year, and it costs us $120 or something. So no big deal. But thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye. I got this cool HODL shirt from eToro, so shout out to eToro. It's from their commercial where they had the guy from Game of Thrones, the HODL guy, and he said HODL. So thought it was fun to show the shirt. That's about it. Bye-bye.